The increasing heat between state governments and the feds may be reaching a virtual boiling point as the Biden administration and its Department of Homeland Security Friday added a supplemental filing to the administration's days-old request for the Supreme Court of the United States, the SCOTUS, to reinstate federal control over the southern Texas border with Mexico. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV, and here's the story. Thomas Stevenson writes for the Post-Millennial, quote, filed on Friday, the document states that the DHS is filing the motion because of new activities by the Texas National Guard and Department of Public Safety. Well, in part, those new activities include Governor Abbott's use of the Texas National Guard and state police to reinforce barriers to entry from the South. Quote, the supplemental memorandum states that the DHS had learned on January 10th that National Guard members had begun erecting new concertina wire barriers. Since the new border wire is further inland and restricts Border Patrol's ability to reach the Rio Grande in particular areas, the DHS is pursuing a legal battle. But some very important and very fundamental questions arise when reading or hearing terms such as Border Patrol and DHS. Those are heavy and powerful constitutional questions that likely the Supreme Court majority, however it's composed when the justices make a decision, won't address. As I've discussed with students and with MRC-TV audiences, it's absolutely essential that Americans understand that the word immigration is not in the U.S. Constitution, and that any federal politician or bureaucrat who claims power to control the Texas border or even to get access to its southern border is breaching the rules in that founding document. Many Americans conflate the power in Article 1, Section 8, granting the Congress the ability to create a rule of naturalization, with the power to create a rule over immigration. Naturalization is, of course, how visitors become American citizens, not whether any of those visitors can be on the soil of any U.S. state. The only passage of the Constitution from which a person might infer a link to immigration is Article 1, Section 9. The wording pertained to slave importation and meant that unless the Constitution were amended, Congress didn't have jurisdiction over importation of slaves in the original states until after 1808, and that it had no power to control the importation of slaves into any new states. If the federal government could block importation of slaves into states beyond the original 13, and of course, the terrible practice of slavery can be explored in a different video. Well, if they could block importation of slaves outside the original 13 states, then there would have been no need for the Missouri Compromise. The founders understood that immigration was not a federal power. In fact, Texas's state constitution, approved in 1869, included an article establishing a Bureau of Immigration in it. If the people of Texas believed Congress had the power to control immigration, why would they bother creating their own Bureau of Immigration? The answer is that Congress didn't have such an enumerated power. It still doesn't, and the only reason contemporary Americans fight over what the feds should do at the border is because of an 1875 Supreme Court ruling in the case of Chilung v. Freeman, which was a challenge to a California statute imposing a charge on boat owners who were facilitating ingress of Chinese women seen as likely prostitutes by those politicians. With that ruling, the justices simply made up federal immigration control, saying in part this ridiculous nonsense: the passage of laws which concern the admission of citizens and subjects of foreign nations to our shores belongs to Congress and not to the states. Well, this ridiculous decision led to federal passage of the Page Law that same year, a statute that restricted lower-priced Chinese immigrant labor and established from that point on that the states would suffer the loss of their constitutionally granted power over immigration. At the post-millennial, Stevenson notes, quote, calls to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, meanwhile, have not been lacking, with Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, floating the idea around a year ago. Official motions from congressional House Republicans on an impeachment resolution started this past Wednesday. And since its Friday supplemental filing with the Supreme Court, the Department of Homeland Security has added more fuel to the feds versus state fire. The Associated Press reports, quote, the U.S. Homeland Security Department said Saturday that Texas denied federal agents access to a stretch of border where they were trying to rescue 3 migrants who drowned. The federal government's account came hours after U.S. Representative Henry Cuellar, Democrat of Texas, said the Texas Military Department and Texas National Guard did not grant access to Border Patrol agents to save the migrants Friday night. Mexican authorities recovered the bodies of a woman and 2 children Saturday across the border from Eagle Pass, Texas. But the Texas government reports something slightly different. Quote, the Texas Military Department said in a statement Saturday night that one of its units had searched the river after Border Patrol alerted them of the situation, but they did not find any migrants. Well, that doesn't necessarily contradict the federal government claim, but it does bring to mind the unavoidable question of federalism here. Left hanging is the matter of whether the U.S. Constitution authorizes the feds to be involved, or if the matter of the lost migrants and all the migrants in Texas is one left to Texas during a time when there has been no war declared. Clearly, the founders left the matter in the hands of the states, and in this case, the Texas Bureau of Immigration and Texas government. One cannot expect the Supreme Court to actually touch on the matters that I'm mentioning here, but we can discuss these things and we can tell other people about this interesting and factual history. This is a very important time to do so. It's a time that helps remind us of what the Constitution actually says and remind us that spreading the word about it could be very, very important. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe. And of course, find us at Rumble where they don't censor us. We are still on YouTube where they do censor us. Please make sure that you're still subscribed at YouTube, by the way. You can also find us all the time at MRCTV.org. That's MRCTV.org. While you're there, visit the MRC Store and please consider contributing to the Media Research Center. All the good folks here who do the writing and the videos and the editing and all the background people, good folks, good people all the way. And of course, you can find us on Facebook, very busy there, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter/X. And I'm on Gab as Gardner Goldsmith. That's at Gardner Goldsmith. And on Twitter/X, I'm at Gard Goldsmith, G-A-R-D Goldsmith. Thanks for watching, everyone. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.